Hey, Steve here, and today what we're going to be doing is talking about vibrato and how to really get the most out of your vibrato, really trying to make it sound as professional as you possibly can. Now, the most important thing to understand about vibrato is that it starts and ends with the wrist placement and the action of the wrist. And so it's really important that you think about that. So if I go to, let's just say I go to the 5th fret of the 3rd string, and I play that note, what I want to do is I want to try and focus on getting a rocking motion with my wrist. Okay, so the most important thing to understand about vibrato is you're not doing this. Okay, it's not coming from the fingers squeezing that string. And the reason is because when you do it that way, you get these kind of crazy, erratic kind of vibratos, these string movements, and it doesn't sound very smooth. And so what you want to learn to do is think of it as like opening a doorknob when you're turning the doorknob, okay? So as I put my first finger on the 5th fret of the 3rd string here, you'll notice I'm bringing my thumb around and I'm grasping onto the top. Now there's a lot of different ways that we can do this as we continue forward, but let's just start with this. So as I'm grabbing on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this first finger, and you're going to notice that on the bottom of the neck here, as I'm putting my first finger on there, the bottom of the side of my finger here is touching the bottom of the neck, okay? So I'm not doing this, right? I'm actually kind of physically grabbing onto the guitar there. And then what happens is, when I want the vibrato, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my wrist like I'm opening a doorknob, okay? And what's happening here is right against my finger here, I'm grinding against the bottom of that guitar neck, and I'm turning it. So if you look right here, this is the action that I'm taking. Okay? I'm turning and pushing against that. And so I'm deciding how much I want to pull that string to get the amount of width that I want out of that vibrato. And then what I do is I simply release it back to where it was before. Okay? Which is very different than just grabbing the string and trying to pull it like this, right? So I'm bracing myself against the bottom of the neck. I'm turning like this. Now, I would never turn this much, but that's what's happening. Then my thumb is really just up there trying to stabilize the motion. Now, your thumb could be down here, but you look what happens if you put your thumb down here. Now, all of a sudden, you have all this extra room right here, okay? And again, you're not able to kind of grab onto the guitar. Now, is it possible to do a vibrato like this? Of course it is. You just use the same kind of idea, okay? The difference is that when you're doing it this way, you aren't able to do as wide a vibrato because there's only so far you're going to be able to pull it without grabbing on. If I grab on here, I can make a much wider vibrato by turning that, okay? Hey, I'd like to give you a free pass to my best courses that will take your playing to the next level fast. Just go to guitarzoom.com and get started for free. And there's also a link in the description. Thanks. Now, what you want to get used to, once you've got your wrist and your hand in position and you're developing that width, the next thing you want to do is develop the speed. So you're deciding how fast you want to go back and forth. And you'll notice you're creating this nice even sine wave like this nice even wave as you do this. You're deciding how wide it's going to be, and you're deciding how fast it's going to be, but you're keeping it even all the way. Or whatever it is that you like, okay? Now again, if you're doing this, it's going to sound a little bit different. It's going to have a little less control. But it doesn't mean that you can't get a nice vibrato by doing that. It's just going to be smaller. You're just not going to have as much control over that to do a wider vibrato like you can when you grab onto the guitar like this, okay? So the other thing that you can do is once you've developed that speed and that width to what feels good, you can decide whether or not you want to create variety within that. You might do something like this. See how I'm changing it up. Okay, and that's completely up to me to do. So if I was playing a phrase, then I decide what kind of vibrato I want on there. Do I want a wide vibrato or a smaller vibrato or a faster vibrato? What am I looking for? Or do I want there to be variety in that vibrato? But the most important thing to understand about all of this is that it's control. You're deciding what your vibrato is going to sound like. You're not just hanging on by a thread trying to... And you get these kind of quasar-sounding vibratos. You keep it nice and smooth. Okay? And it all comes from the wrist. So when you grab on, you're using that wrist to control how much you're turning. You're grabbing on right here with the bottom of the bottom of the guitar with your finger, and you're turning it and deciding how much you want. You have so much more control by doing that as opposed to just trying to do this with the finger. Okay? So again, you got to work out what works best for you, but it's very important to think about that as you're doing this. How wide, how fast, right? And the last thing I want to talk to you about this, well, there's two more things, but one is whether or not you want that vibrato to come in immediately or whether or not you want to wait. And it really does have a cool little impact depending on what you do. So if I play, again, a phrase... Notice how I hit my destination, and then I waited, and then I added the vibrato. Right? Whatever it is I want to do. Okay? And that last one, you'll notice I came in right away. So if I play... and just go right into it. Okay? There are two different ways of doing it, but it's nice to be aware of that. So if you're playing a really nice melody, you can decide... See, sometimes it's nice to wait a little bit and then add your vibrato because it adds more excitement to what it is you're doing. Okay, or if I do something like that and I add the vibrato right away, it might make it feel a little more rushed, but it depends on what it is that you're trying to do. Okay? And then the last thing I want you to think about with a vibrato is when you're playing, whether or not you want that vibrato to mimic the tempo or the groove of the song that you're playing in, or whether or not it's going to have its own free time. And a great way of thinking about this is certain singers you can hear when they sing and they add their vibrato to their voice, their vibrato will match the rhythm of the music. Doesn't always do that, but we have that same ability. So if we're playing something that's going dun, you know, yeah, so we can decide how we want to do that, whether we want the rhythm to sort of mimic what the song is doing or whether we're just doing our own thing, okay? So technique, number one, most important that you really try and get used to. Number two then is some of the elements, the width, the speed, and then any variety of those things that you want to use within there. And then deciding whether you want that vibrato to start right away or whether you want to pause it. And then whether or not it's mimicking the tempo of the song or the groove of the song, or whether or not it's your own thing. And those are all different things to think about. Now, the last thing I want to say about this vibrato is that vibrato can go toward the ceiling. You don't have to do it toward the floor. Okay? I don't do that. I don't go toward the ceiling, and it feels very awkward to do that. So I tend to always go toward the floor when I do my vibratos like that. But everybody's different. So if you decide that it's more comfortable for you to push it toward the ceiling, that's fine. The most important thing to understand is that you've got this stable spot in the middle, right? Your catalyst, if you will, which is no vibrato at all. And what you want to make sure is that you don't go, you know, you bend, no matter whether you're bending toward the ceiling or the floor, you're raising the pitch, right? I mean, that's what's happening. You're putting tension on the string and it's raising the pitch. What you don't want to do is go both ways. You don't want to go, because it's going to sound very strange. So if you decide you want to pull toward the floor, you're going to pull toward the floor and then go back to that static pitch. Or you're going to push toward the ceiling and then come back to that static pitch. You don't want to go over that line when you do it because it's not going to sound comfortable. Okay, so hopefully that helps you a little bit in understanding more about the basics of vibrato. Thank you for watching this video. If you're enjoying this video and you'd like to support the channel so we can continue to bring you more free content, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications and let me know what you think in the comments below. Also, if you'd like more in-depth training and courses, go to guitarzoom.com and get started for free today.